Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and Bill's going to do our invocation.
Let us pray. Our Father, we give you thanks for this day and our time together. We ask you to bless our meal and to inspire us to reach out more than we already are to this community. Give us strength, and give us grace. In Christ's name, amen.
Please join me as we do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have some guests today. Lori Brown is a guest of Mickey. And, okay. All right. Lindy Schubert is a guest of Shannon and Donna. Welcome back, Lindy. And welcome to all of you Rotarians who braved the weather to come and join us today. Pin check. I forgot mine. You know, when I write all this stuff down, I probably ought to take note. If you're not wearing your pin, just put $1 in the middle of the table. And who has a happy dollar today? Boy, what a glum bunch of people. All right. Why are you happy today? Well, all right. Thank you. Who else? Bob has one.
I have one. My wife Ellen is a member of a book club, and the book club tries to do something every year, and Tina is a member of that as well. And this year they chose, and they have pledged $1,400 to Festival Tech. So, great. Thank you so much.
All right. Anybody else happy enough to pay for it? Okay, Laura? And Jennifer said she's climbing the pole. All right. And any others? Well, don't forget we have the cart fund buckets on the table for your change and folding money. This goes to Alzheimer's research. And I think it's important, and I think you would agree. So pony up. I was living in Kentucky in 1980, down in the hill part of it, and I heard this story when I was up there about a census. It was the 1980 census. And the census taker for a region way off the map in Kentucky, down in the southern part, went to the end of the road to the cart path and got on the cart path and had to leave his car, walked to the end of the cart path and found a little cow path up through the woods and followed that until he finally came to this ramshackle house. Does anybody remember the old cartoon character Snuffy Smith? That kind of a house. And it was just overrun with children. And the census taker got the name of the lady of the house and her husband, and then he wanted to start in on the children, and she said, well, first there's the twins over there, they're 18, and there's the twins over there, they're 16. And the twins over there are 14, and the 12-year twins are over there, and the census taker said, wait, did you get twins every time? And she said, oh, no. Sometimes we didn't get nothing. I've got another one if you... Is that enough?
Thank you, Bill. I just had a couple things, club business. First of all, Laura pointed out we are installing our first Osprey Nest platform this Saturday. Hopefully it gets above 50 in the morning while we're out there. It's going to be a little cold. I do want to thank John Ellenberg and the Career Academy students for building the actual platform. They've built 2 so far, so I'll pick those up tomorrow morning and get those over to Matthew. So it's definitely been a partnership with the schools and with Bulldog Marine to get this work done. The other thing is Polio Radio. I guess the Bob's interview on for Polio Plus is on this week. So if you get a chance, tune into Doc Radio and you can hear Bob. And then the other thing we need to start working on is we do Christmas gifts for needy families in December. So I was talking to Don O'Neill about that this morning. So we need to get focused on that. And if anybody's interested in helping out, let me know in terms of either identifying families or participating in the selection of gifts and acquiring those. With that, one of the things we want to talk about today is the super raffle. We're in the midst of selling tickets and acquiring sponsors. And Donna, if you could come up and talk a little bit about the raffle.
Well, we're doing real well with our sponsors so far, and we're having a meeting today to sort of consolidate all of that. And also, we have had tickets money turned in, stubs and money, and we need more. And I have more tickets, so please don't hesitate to ask me for them and sell them. We need to, as you know, we have 1,000 tickets to sell, and we each got 10, but there's still more. And so work on that. And also you may drop off your money and ticket stubs to Laura at her office, and she can give you her address. I know it's... She's on Founders Row, next door to Pathways to Healing. Okay, 1028 Founders Row. Okay, I will also give Laura extra tickets that can be picked up at her office. Yes, Tom? Okay, bring money and checks to Tom Cornelia to their meetings on Thursday. And you, if you see me, you can give them to me out, and I will deliver them to Tom. And if you need tickets, don't hesitate to call me, and I'll bring them to you. We aim to please. And I will let Bob Massey tell you his procedure for selling tickets. He seems to do quite well at it.
Bill's handing out a piece that we'll talk about in a second, but let's, in all honesty, how many people hate selling raffle tickets? Come on, let's be honest. 4-way test, and there's a bunch more than are raising their hands in the club, because they hate going to somebody and saying, hey, Sean, I got these tickets, they're $50 a piece, and you go, ugh! And just the idea, even talking to someone about spending, trying to pick their pockets for money is very difficult for a lot of people. So let's talk for a second of how people buy and why they buy. And they buy for sizzle. There's a sizzle on the steak, the sex appeal of particular things, the perceived value just because it's the best one on the shelf or the more expensive one on the shelf. They buy for a lot of very soft reasons. But they also buy for hard ones. And a lot of people in this community buy tickets like this, not just for the fun. You got to admit, it's really fun watching this thing 52 weeks of the year and seeing who won and seeing whether you win. And, that's the sizzle. That's a lot of fun. But that's not why people buy tickets. And, many of them will buy, if they're buying a single ticket, that's why they'll do it. And they buy it because, Rotary's a good organization. Well, the handout that you have is something that will be emailed to you by Scott. And this is something I would share with everyone who you want to sell a ticket to. And I'd share it with them ahead of asking them to buy a ticket. And the reason for it is this is pretty overwhelming when you look at the number of things that Rotary does. Now watch, I'll show you how successful this is. Lou, you can read this, right? Would you like to buy 10 tickets? Sure. Okay. Come on. Does it get any easier? Hell, here. Now read the stuff. Now, what we're about, and you notice in these write-ups, it's about the stories of the people that we help. It's not just about the facts. And when you think that we choose 5 students we ask the schools to make sure that they're need-based choices, both academic and need-based, that 5 kids get $1,000 to go to school who will desperately need that $5,000. Think about it in the terms of those kids and the impact. For many of you who are fairly new, you don't know all the things that we do. You couldn't just rattle them off. But one example is the backpacks that go home every Friday afternoon during the school year for 160 kids in Greene County. And those are K through 4, and those are kids who probably won't have nutritious food through the weekend. And this is to guarantee that they get decent food, they have something nutritious to carry them through the weekend. That's 160 little kids from K through 4. Just think about that those kids are going home. And if you haven't been out in the community and really seen some of these situations, John can tell you how absolutely sad some of these situations are. Shoes. How many here have been to one of our shoe distributions? Will you ever forget the look on those kids' eyes as they get to pick out their own shoes for the first time, to get to make any choice on what they get, and they're actually getting new, not a hand-me-down from their older brother or sister? Those are the things that we do that impact and are the reasons why people would say, you know what, instead of 1, give me 2 or give me 4. And once you get them going 1 year, they go on for year after year. Reed and I have mailing lists at this point. I ran my first mail out about 10 days ago. I immediately got 44 tickets sold. And those are all just people who have bought from me before because they know the stories, they know what we do, They know the impact we have on the market. Tri-Pets love vets. Everyone is, virtually everyone around here is very pet sensitive, and they don't want to see animals being mistreated. They want to see them getting proper homes. And what more proper home than veterans who, you know, if you think about, everybody loves pets and the kind of difference they can make. Having a therapy dog where I've gone and visited with very mentally disabled people, and when you take the dog in, it's like night and day. I've visited with veterans, and the veterans' reaction to that dog, this was in a psych ward at the VA hospital, and their reaction in talking to that dog, it was like a vacation. It was like a break from reality. It brings them out. It's just, it's really important. You can go down through the rest of this and assist and help disabled. Examples. This club partnered on 3 different projects. One of them was to help a 62-year-old disabled, actually blind individual, and he lives in a very small house in Union Point, and he didn't know his floors were rotting out because he couldn't see them, and his bathroom became totally non-functional, couldn't use the sink, the tub, the toilet, nothing, because the floors were all rotted out, and it was starting to creep in. This is a one-room house, basically. It was starting to creep into the kitchen area, and he had a porta potty outside. He had his son come and picking him up every second or third day to take him home to bathe, because he had no way to do that. And we helped to go in and gut the bathroom and replace all the flooring and build an actual nice, clean, decent bathroom for him. Imagine it's your mother. She's 79 years old and had 2 strokes, and the furnace in her house last December was declared unusable, and the gas company refused to light it for her because it was dangerous. And so we stepped in and we bought a new furnace for that lady. 79, can't talk because of the damage from the stroke, hard time getting around, and instead of space heaters, she got a nice, warm, comfortable house out of it. Those are the stories that you want to share with people, and much of that is in here. An overview of them is in here, but you want to share those stories with people, and you will get, where do I sign, how many do you want? You don't have to push hard on, you know, you get 52 chances to win. Throw that in because that's the sizzle, but the steak is all of what this money impacts and the difference that we make in lives around the community. So don't be shy about talking to people about it. You got a handout, put it in their hands and say, I'll call you tomorrow, take a look at it, and let's talk about those things. And talk what you know about these stories, talk about them. And that's all there is to this. This is not rocket science. It's not anything you should be uncomfortable with. Give them the handout. Talk, you know, give them a chance to read it and talk to them and say, you know, your tickets are going specifically to fund the ability for us to do this stuff. And we got a lot of dedicated people who are focused on helping the community. We need your help to be able to carry it out. That's all there is. Read. Now, if you're trying to sell Tom Cornelia, he's cheap. So, you know. Hey, that's the other thing is we're on November 1st here already, and we got to get this done by December 1st. This can't be, you know, waiting until the holidays and getting all that done. We've got to be December 1 because the month of December, as y'all know, is pretty much lost. So just a question, how many in the room have sold a ticket? How many have sold 5 tickets? 10. All right, 20. All right. One of our newest members, Mr. Sarah in the back, is afraid to talk to people. He's a very shy individual. How about 25? Laura. Oh, that's the other thing. I will relinquish my unprinted ownership of Nextdoor, and whoever wants to take that on, I wouldn't say take 5 of you, but I don't know, 6 years ago, I got the idea, I'll post it on there. I sold at least 40 tickets off of that. So that's another alternative that you might do. But there's all kinds of ways to get it done. And Reed's already sold 40. This isn't, you know, tell them this, give them the story, and the rest of it takes care of itself. Okay.
Thank you, Bob. I can send that to you. Yeah, I have the database. Well,
And if you're selling like more than 5 or 10 tickets, more than 10, because you have a sales thing, start a spreadsheet and just keep their name, their phone number, and their email address. And every year I just copy that, cut and paste it, and send them an email.
yeah. Thank you, Bob.
And Lou, I'll have them send for you. I'll drop them off.
Okay. So at this point, I want to go ahead and turn the mic over to Rick Siddons, who's going to introduce our featured speakers today.
Yeah, I'll make this brief. I'd only been living out here probably about 7 months when I discovered that the Georgia Writers Museum was right here in our backyard in Eatonton. I've been a lifelong follower of literature and the arts because my stepmother happened to be one of the best-known, best-selling Southern authors, and she passed a couple of years ago. And I said, Georgia Writers Museum, never heard of it before. She was already in the Georgia Writers Hall of Fame. Her name was Ann Rivers Siddons. And because of that, I reached out to the executive director, one of our guests today, and went and saw it. And I said, this is fantastic. Subsequently got introduced to our other guest. So I'll just go ahead and introduce them, and they'll tell you more about themselves and what the Georgia Writers Museum is all about. We've got Lou Benjamin, the president of Georgia Writers Museum. I think several people, maybe a lot of people in the room know him. And also, we've got Melissa Swindell. She's the executive director of the museum, and she's only, I think this is just a little over a year ago that you joined the organization. So happy to have them as guests. Lou will go first, and give it up for them.
Thank you, Rick, and thank you for having us today. Just real quick, I know that you all had a meeting 2 years ago, did one of your lunches and came and saw the museum. How many of you were on that? And how many of you were here maybe 8 or 9 years ago when I spoke to Rotary last? Wow, okay. And so if I'm doing my math, about half the room knows nothing about any of this stuff. So I'm going to give you a very quick background and history, and then I am going to turn things over to Melissa, who actually knows what she's talking about. And in the meantime, I'm going to ask maybe that she hand out a little summary around the room of what we've done and where we've come. Very briefly, the history of the museum is about 10 years ago. Eatonton had not recovered from the economic crash of '08 and '09. And a group of citizens got together and brought the Department of Economic Development in and said, what can we do to save our little town here? And their recommended strategy to us was to try to attract tourists. That was the fastest way to get money into a town, and that their recommendation was that the fastest route to tourism was the arts, and that if we could come up with venues in the arts that would attract visitors, these are the kind of people that spend money and will stick around and see multiple things. So at the time, I was asked for no good reason to chair a think tank to come up with ideas in the arts to do just that. And I did that with the caveat that I not have any artists on the committee, because this was a business proposition. We needed to come up with good, solid business ideas. So we looked at the arts and we kicked the tires on a number of things, but we settled on two different strategies. One was the literary arts and the other was the visual arts. I won't talk about the visual arts today. That's the Artisans Village, if those of you are familiar with either the gallery or the guild, or what is going to be very shortly the culmination of one of our dreams there. We finished renovating one of the warehouses that was purchased, and you'll see some live artisans begin to perform in Eatonton. But on the literary arts, we came up with the idea for the Georgia Writers Museum based on two different things. And one is, Rick mentioned that there's the Georgia Writers Hall of Fame, which is one of the accolades that famous or successful writers and authors can get in our state. At the time that we were looking at this museum, there were 57 writers in the Georgia Writers Hall of Fame. We found that 9 of them were from within 20 miles of Eatonton. So there's an epicenter of literary heritage that most people don't know exists right here. 3 truly local people from our area: Joel Chandler Harris, Flannery O'Connor, and Alice Walker. So this gave us the idea for being able to have a museum. And as we did our homework, we found that in the entire country, there's only one other museum that does multiple authors. Virtually every famous author has a museum, and it's normally their childhood home. So you can go see the Margaret Mitchell House or the Mark Twain House. But there's only one other museum in the country, and it's in Chicago, the American Writers Museum, that does multiples. So between those two things, we felt we were onto something unique. We rented a space in downtown Eatonton and opened the museum officially in 2014. Our goal was to become part of the literary conversation and to learn about the museum business, because none of us knew anything about it, which hadn't changed for a lot of us. We wanted to become part of the literary conversation and become relevant in the state before we attempted an expansion of the museum. So we started very small. If you came to the museum back in those days, you would have seen our exhibits were against the wall, because we needed to keep the center of the room open to do Meet the Author events or our classes or our readings and lectures. That was what we did. If you time warp ahead now, 7 years later, I would be arrogant and say to you that we are the literary conversation, not just part of it. We're known all over the state. Our events now are virtually all sellouts. The caliber of our authors is probably evidenced best by the next one that's coming in 2 weeks, Bill Curry. And so we're attracting now name authors who have reputations throughout the state and the country. I'll let Melissa get more into the programming and the events. Last year, 2 years ago, over the last 2 years, let's say, 2 things have really changed that will make a big difference to us. 2 years ago, we had an opportunity to purchase the space that we're in, along with the 2 spaces next door. We pulled the trigger on that, and that allowed us to now move all of our conference, meeting, and classroom stuff next door. We have a 3rd space that is a tenant that likes the area and is staying, and their rent covers the mortgage for all 3 places. And we're now embarking on, or about to embark on, the 3rd renovation of the museum itself. We did one almost immediately because we were able to bring the exhibits out from the walls. If you haven't been down there actually even since the 2 years that you all toured it, you'll see a totally different museum. It's a lot more stuff and a lot less words. It's a lot more interesting, and it's about half of what we're going to be doing as we go down the road. Melissa will probably tell you more about that. And then the second big thing that happened was a year ago right now, and that was a decision on the board's part to go big or go home. And that was, I guess, the best example of that is we hired Melissa Swindell. If you read her bio on the piece that you all received, you'll see that she's got a lot of knowledge of museum, great pedigree and background. She happens to be a pretty nice person, but don't tell anybody I said that. But she's been a game changer for the museum, and rather than me stand up here and bore you, I'm going to let her interest you. But thank you again so much for having us. And my last thing that I'll say is, like any nonprofit, we're desperate for your help, and that help can come in the form of your time, your talent, your money, but we need functional help in every area of a business, marketing and publicity and communications and fundraising and business development and operations and construction. And I mean, name a place, we're doing something in it and we need your help. So like every other nonprofit, please, if what we're talking about interests you, come get involved. We'd love to have you. So without further.
Thanks. Hi, all. As Lou and Rick said, I'm Melissa Swindell, the director of the Georgia Writers Museum. I'm going to pass around some of our RAC cards and my business card, just in case you want to be able to find us a little later. But as Lou said, I started about a year ago joining this all-volunteer organization. And to me, the board of directors for an all-volunteer, we're really making huge strides. You'll see on the page that Lou handed out, where we've been for the past 7 years. And they've just been growing and accomplishing and bringing in fantastic authors. And Lou forgot to mention the 2019 with Alice Walker when she came back for her 75th birthday. That brought about 600 people into the town of Eatonton, both locals and people from across the state and I think across the U.S. even. So, they've been growing as an all-volunteer group, and they've really got their ducks in a row. And so I felt confident that coming into Eatonton, having known nothing about the town before I got here, this was going to be a fun and successful venture. So I'm excited to be here. And you'll see on our RAC card, as Lou mentioned, we have about 70 to 75 authors in the Hall of Fame right now. About 3 to 5 new ones get inducted each year. 9 of those from the local area. And this past week, so we've been collecting from all of these authors. We are short on historic artifacts, and as a museum, that's my biggest initiative, is to bring in artifacts that relate to these authors. So if you come to the museum now, if you haven't been in a while, we just received over the summer Sidney Lanier's historic artifacts from his cottage in Macon, Georgia. So everything from the flute that he used at the Baltimore Symphony Orchestra to create works like the Song of the Chattahoochee or Marches of Glen. We have that on display. We have his portable writing desk that he used as he traveled between here and the Mid-Atlantic. And my favorite, his alligator slippers. Very tiny feet. Super cute. So come see those. But we also just received a donation from Wesleyan College this past week, which we'll be picking up by the end of the month. His writing desk, the desk that he used, kind of full stature. And so that'll be in the museum by the end of the year. And we're very excited about that. So as we go along, and he's one of our 9 local authors. He went to college in Milledgeville when Oglethorpe University was there rather than in Atlanta. So there's a handful of others that we're actively collecting with: Alice Walker, Joel Chandler Harris, of course. So when you get to the museum, you'll be able to see all of those. In addition to collecting for new exhibits, we have programs coming up, and I will put these out on the table for you guys to see. But in September, we were supposed to have Bill Curry. That got rescheduled to next week. So November 2nd, Bill Curry, who is most recently, 9th. So, November 9th is Bill Curry. Thanks, Lou. And he wrote the book 10 Men You Meet in the Huddle about his time coaching football at the university level primarily. And his wife, Carolyn, who has a new book coming out next year, will be with him as well. Backing up 1 week, November, the original scheduled date, November 2nd, and all these are at 7 o'clock at the museum. We have Peter Selgin, who is a professor of creative writing and English at the Georgia State College in Milledgeville, and he will be with us with his newest book, Duplicity, which is a little perfect for this time of year, kind of murder mystery novel. And then lastly, in December of this year, the first Tuesday, we will have Janice Ray, who is a Hall of Fame writer. Her first book was Ecology of a Cracker Childhood, if some of you remember that one. But she's got a new book out called Wild Spectacle, and she'll be with us again. The QR codes on here go to our website, and the prices are not the price of admission. Those are the prices of their books. If you're looking for them, you can find those at the museum as well. And most recently, we launched our Spooky Story Contest, which you will see in today's newspaper, the Eaton Messenger. We had over 154 entries this year, which has just been great for us. When I got there were about 40 entries in our second year when I arrived. Last year we had about 90, and now we're over 150. And we opened it to the state for the first time this year, and we have gotten entries, mostly local, a lot of Greene County, Putnam County, but we've expanded this year to a handful of homeschool students that we hadn't reached in the past, and all the way up to an entry from Suwanee, Georgia, which was pretty incredible for us. And so you can read the first place winners in today's paper, and we'll get those posted on our website as well, but a great way for our third graders through eighth graders to be able to participate. Can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but I'm happy to take questions for a couple minutes if you guys have anything about the Writers Museum. Yes. He is not. And I think Rick asked that when he came in as well. That's the most asked question we get about the Hall of Fame. And my standard response is there's a nomination form on the Georgia Writers Hall of Fame website. Yes, we can. Yeah. Yeah, so my, first job-ish was at the National Museum of American History, the Smithsonian in Washington, D.C. I was up there for grad school and started as an intern and eventually got hired on to do research for the history and food projects that they were doing, so the history of colonial food. It was a contract, and so that lasted me about a year. It was a lot of fun and pretty delicious, especially when you get to go to conferences that are hosted by the Mars Corporation and they feed you all the chocolate you can eat. But that contract ended. The research came to a conclusion. They opened the exhibit now. The American Enterprise exhibit is a 20-year permanent gallery at the Smithsonian. So with that, I wanted to come back to Atlanta, which is my home. So I lived here for a while, worked at Heritage Sandy Springs, which is the historical society in Sandy Springs just north of Atlanta, and then was director of the Wren's Nest, Joel Chandler Harris's adult home in the West End neighborhood, and then out here to Eaton. No, Joel Chandler Harris is born and raised here in Eaton, so he's one of our 9 authors. I will caveat this with Lou and I haven't discussed this privately, so it's a surprise to him what I'm about to say. No. But no, I worked at the Wren's Nest for about 2 years in Atlanta and have done more research than I ever intended on Joel Chandler Harris and the Harris family and his stories. My personal opinion, not necessarily reflecting the views of the museum, caveat, is that Brer Rabbit is misinterpreted today in modern memory. And there's a much longer thesis statement I can give you on this. But basically, when Disney bought the rights from the Wren's Nest in the 1930s, Disney reinterpreted Harris's stories, and they're not completely true to the original works. And so I think Harris is a little more forgiving and a little more nuanced and a little more complex and a little less racist than Brer Rabbit gets credit for today, and with the public memory being Walt Disney.
And let me add 2 things to this. It's a great question, by the way. 2 things. As a museum, we are about the stories of our authors, not about their works. And a number of famous writers have controversial works. We don't take any stand on that. So we are Switzerland when it comes to stands on things. But we want to tell the stories of the people that wrote them. What were their influences? How did they get where they are? How did they become writers? Why did they embrace the written word, et cetera? Melissa just got back yesterday from, it was at Southeastern Museum Conference, which is the biggest conference in the country where museums get together, and she chaired a symposium on how do museums deal with sensitive topics. And it's difficult today, and it's our philosophy as a museum and a company that you cannot learn anything from history if you erase it, and so you have to tell the stories no matter how uncomfortable they are, and so that's our position. Believe me, we get, and it's not just on Joel Chandler Harris. We get lots of questions on Alice Walker. We get questions on Longstreet. I mean, name anybody that grew up in the South, some years back, and there's going to be something controversial. So we have to deal with this all the time, and don't be uncomfortable about asking the question. We're not uncomfortable about asking it, but it's the world we live in today. You got to be able to deal with that. So.
Yes. Mostly individual donors. Add us to your list. Yeah. Now that you lose raffle money, I don't get paid next month. No, but we just brought on a new treasurer for our board who worked with me at the Run's Nest, and so she has great strategy for coming up with grant funding and foundations that we can reach out to, especially as we kind of move forward next year with bigger and better things as we start renovating the museum and looking to purchasing new exhibits and updating our collections. Great. Thank you all.
Thank you, Lou and Melissa. And could you pull a ticket for me? We have a weekly Queen of Hearts raffle. And the winning number this week is 984. 984. Anybody? Dom. Dom's a winner. All right, Dom, you get to pick a card. Hey, Melissa. So close. 10 of hearts, so we're still alive. You can tear that up and take it home with you. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to share one thing. I forgot to bring this up earlier. We did receive a thank you note from Putnam General Hospital. It actually went to the Elks Club Lodge, and they handed it to me the other day. And so it says, "Dear Rotary Club, thank you for sponsoring pizza, lunches, and dinners for the Putnam General Hospital staff during these trying times. Community support is more important than ever. Staff love having pizza provided, and we're thankful for the Rotary Club showing so much support. The signs from the Boys and Girls Club have brightened up the cafeteria as well. Thank you," from Sydney Montgomery Duval from Putnam General Hospital. So that's our work with Healthcare Heroes. Thank you, Reed. And Donna, do we have a winner for this week's super raffle? All right. You know, when you go shopping for $300 of furniture, it's probably going to be a little more than that. Thank you. Did she buy her ticket from Dom Sarah? Okay. Yeah. All right, everybody. Let's go ahead and adjourn with the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth? Is it fair to all concerned? Will it build goodwill and better friendships? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Melissa, for coming out. Appreciate that.